So my name is Laverne Russell, and I'm a Community Food Advisor Volunteer here at KFL&A.
And my name is Kwong, and I'm also a volunteer with the CFA program. I'm happy to be able to be here to share some fun food nutrition information. And today we'll be talking about beets. So what exactly is a beet? A beet is a root vegetable that's in season from summer to fall, but it's available in the grocery stores all year round. They're a good source of vitamin C, folacin, potassium, and the beet greens, the leaves themselves, are a source of antioxidants as well as vitamin K.
So I'd just like to point out a display of some kinds of beets. This is called a candy cane beet. You can see it's red and white stripes. They're not very sweet, but they sure are pretty, and I would like to see them more often used. This is also an orange beet or a yellow beet, and you can see them cut over there. We also have a couple of raw beets on a plate, and also a cooked beet sliced open, unpeeled for you to see. There are also beet greens up here, cleaned and chopped for you to taste when we do our food tasting. And I just have a few tips on selecting and storing beets. You can buy them in bunches, as this one would have been, with the greens attached. And you can also buy them in bags in the supermarket. Usually all year round you can find them in plastic bags in the supermarket. In the bags, the tops are removed, so you don't have that ability to use the greens, which are a wonderful addition to salads. But they are available all year round. It's best to look for beets that are firm to the touch. When I went to buy them for this presentation, one bag that I picked up, I felt them and they were spongy. So that indicates the beets have dried out or something's wrong with them and they would not cook up well. So always feel them, make sure that they are firm. The surface should be smooth and they should be dry. Dry looking as this one is. When you get home from the store with the beet green, or from the market with the beet greens and the beets attached, what you do is you take a beet like this and you chop off the greens, as I've done there. Wash the greens thoroughly in a lot of water. Dry them off by using a salad spinner or shaking them. And then you chop them up. You can put them in a breathable plastic bag and keep them for a day or two, but then they should be used as soon as possible because they tend not to hold up as long as some other greens do. If you look at your handout, you will see that there are 3 methods for cooking beets that are shown. You can microwave them. You can cook them in boiling water on the stovetop as you would do potatoes, or in the oven roasting as you're going to have a sample of today.
So like Laverne mentioned, there's 3 basic ways to cook beets. The first would be to boil the beets. And all you have to do is cover the beets in water, let the water boil, then simmer until the beets are nice and tender. Another popular method is to roast the beets. We're going to do a little quick demo here. We're going to take this raw beet and chop off the end here. And we're just going to quarter the beets.
So he chopped the tail off as well.
Just going to quarter the beets. We're going to put it into this tin foil. And then you want to add about 2 tablespoons of water to prevent the beet from drying out. Then you just gotta wrap it up into a little pocket. You can pop it into the oven or put it onto your barbecue. It's also an option to toss the beets in some oil, or maybe to slice the beets, or even chop it into smaller pieces. And what that does is it helps reduce the cooking time. So that's important. So that's roasting. And a last method would be to microwave the beets. You simply put it into a microwavable bowl and put some water in and microwave for about 2 to 4 minutes. You can peel the beets. This is optional because the beets, the peels do have some nutrients in them. But you can peel them because sometimes the texture is really rough, or there's a bit of a tardy taste to the peel. So we're just going to cut off the ends again. One way, if you're lucky, you can just peel them off with your fingers, or if you want, you can just take a paring knife and just kind of scrape off the peel along its sides.
Unfortunately, I have found over the years when I boil beets and go to peel them, there will always be one, just like with tomatoes, that doesn't want to peel. And in that case, you can use a trusty vegetable peeler and the peel will come right off. So one of the dishes that we prepared for you today is tasty roasted beets. I have them already prepared. I washed them all, and to wash them, I use a brush, a stiff vegetable brush, and I run them under running water. Brush the peel off just to get rid of all the grit before I start to work with the beets, and you should do that actually before you cook them at all. So I used a vegetable peeler on the raw beets, and it's like peeling a carrot actually. It's not difficult at all. I peeled them all. I cut them into bite-sized pieces, partly because I wanted them to cook more quickly, but also they look really nice in the bowl when they're in smaller pieces, and they roast nicely. I put them in a big bowl, added olive oil to them, and you can add any fresh herbs you'd like. I today used fresh thyme from the garden and chopped it up and added it to the mixture. Put them on a large baking tray with a piece of parchment paper on the bottom, and put them in a very hot oven. In this case it was 425, and your recipe says to do it for 20 minutes. I don't know if it's because I was doing so many or if it's my oven, but it took longer than that. It took about 40 minutes actually, just as if you were doing other roasted vegetables. You can tell whether they're done if you take a fork and pierce the pieces. They should be very pliable, it should go right in like any well-cooked vegetables. The softer they are, the more tasty they are. So it's very simple, and we will have it for you to taste in a few minutes.
So that looks fantastic, Laverne. We're going to do the bulgur and beet salad. We've gone ahead and pre-boiled the beets and chopped them into little bits. So we're just going to add this to our mixing bowl. And we're going to add the bulgur. Now, you can always substitute this with other kinds of grains such as quinoa or barley.
How long did it take to cook the bulgur?
About 15 minutes.
Right.
It's not too long. So mix that in. And we're going to mix all the other ingredients. We have some chopped celery, some chopped apples, some green onions, and then finally some chopped walnuts. That's a nice little touch.
You could add any kind of nuts that you wanted.
And then all that's left to do is actually do the dressing. So the dressing consists of some balsamic, some olive oil, a tablespoon and a half of honey. Dijon mustard.
While Kwan is mixing up the dressing and mixing up the salad, I'd just like to share with you a few ways to use beets in a more broad way in your kitchen. So you can use raw peeled beets in salads and soups by grating them on a vegetable grater. You just grate them, add them to any salad or soup, and it adds a lot of nutrition and color and texture. A favorite soup made with beets is borscht. It's a soup that has a lot of beets in it and a lot of other vegetables. Very tasty. You can use beet greens raw or cooked the same way you would use any broad-leafed green leafy vegetable, such as Swiss chard, kale, or spinach. So you get it home, you wash it thoroughly, chop it up, and you can add it directly to soups or to a salad. You can eat it raw. You can roast beets as I described, but you can also make a medley of other roasted vegetables, root vegetables. So you can use carrots, parsnips, turnips, potatoes, sweet potatoes, squash, any combination you like. Any collection of herbs you'd like to add. You can add onions and garlic. As long as they have enough olive oil and you let them roast in the oven, they will turn out beautifully. You just have to make sure they've roasted long enough. Believe it or not, you can take a cooked beet that's been peeled and slice it very thinly and add the slices to sandwiches or wraps. I'd really recommend trying it. You can make a mash with beets and potatoes. As you mash your potatoes, you can add some cooked beets. I would make sure they were cooked well and chopped into small pieces. And then you can mash them as you do potatoes. And it makes an interesting color to introduce to children. They kind of get a little excited. Pink potatoes. And you can pickle beets by adding making a liquid of vinegar and sugar, mix it together, and add your peeled cooked beets to a jar. Pour the liquid over, and seal it and put it in the refrigerator. And in a few days, you'll have pickled beets. Very simple.
Actually, you mentioned the mash there to add color. It's interesting because my family traditionally, when it's Chinese or Vietnamese New Year, we use the beets to add color to the rice. So it makes a nice red type of rice, and it's a traditional thing to do for New Year's. So that's kind of interesting.
Holiday color.
Holiday color, exactly. So we're gonna mix this dressing with our beet and bulgur mix here. Mix it up a bit. And right away you can see the color coming out of the beets. So it's going to make the salad nice and pinkish. And the celery, the green onions, and the apples add a bit of green to the mix. So it's quite nice.